The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
What would happen if we held an election the way that Americans used to do it just a few years ago? We should try that sometime. Here's how it would work. Everyone would vote on the same day in person. You would show up and present an ID, just like you do at the airport or the liquor store. Then you'd mark your preferences on a piece of paper. You do it manually. There would be no electronic voting machines. There would be no drop boxes or absentee ballots. The poll workers would probably be people that you recognize from your own zip code. They'd be your neighbors. They would not be employees of Mark Zuckerberg from California. As for the names on the ballot, you would get to choose those yourself, as citizens do in a democracy. Judges wouldn't be allowed to tell you who you can vote for and who you can't vote for. You'd get to decide. And then once you voted, nobody could order a stop to the vote counting. That would be illegal. So you would know the results of the election in just a few hours, and you would feel pretty confident that they were pretty real. That's how we used to do it in this country. What would happen if we tried it again?
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope everyone had a great weekend and enjoyed the day off yesterday. Man, it's been a minute. I feel like I've been gone for a few days, which I actually have been gone for a few days. So anyway, wanted to jump back in today. It's going to be a quick one because I'm going to follow it up with another episode tomorrow. But what I wanted to do is really just catch up on what's taken place over the past 4 or 5 days. And I've been doing some more self-reflection. I think this podcast for me is like therapy on myself. It really is. But I really do a lot of self-reflection about, what I want to talk about, the direction I want it to take, my stances on things. And I'll be honest, over the weekend and yesterday, I'm really honing in on who am I? Who am I? And what's my role? What's my lane? What lane do I want to be in? What do I stand for? What do I want to communicate? What are the things that, I really want to try and convey? And I don't have it all figured out, but what I am coming to the brutal realization is that it really is all, and I guess this is cool, but it's all circles back to the calling a spade thing. I mean, it really does. And the reason it circles back to the calling a spade thing is because I don't agree with what everyone I agree with says all the time. And then I don't disagree with what everyone I disagree with says all the time. And I started the episode off with playing Tucker Carlson. I like Tucker Carlson. I do. I watched him during COVID. I applauded his, critical eye about what was taking place in COVID. And that's kind of what made me like him. Prior to that, I really didn't even know anything about him. I think my when you said if you'd have asked me Tucker Carlson, I'd be like, oh, I watched him on Dancing with the Stars and I thought he was terrible. That is like a true white man dancing. But when it came to the COVID stuff, he was the only one that was really just questioning things and asking questions. And I'll be honest, because the COVID thing for me, and again, this isn't judging good or bad, or, this isn't about getting vaccinated, not getting vaccinated, any of that stuff. The COVID thing for me, it just was an eye-opener. It made me wake up. And honestly, that's what literally led to this podcast. It led to the writing of the book. It's led to everything. It just woke me up. And it woke me up to really think about what is going on in the world. And like I said, I've come to the realization, and I'm not even going to label it. Like, I'm not going to say I'm in the center. I'm a centrist. I'm this. I hate those labels, because again, I've realized that I don't always agree with the people I agree with, and I don't always disagree with the people that maybe even sometimes I strongly disagree with. And I think that that's come out a lot with me over the past 30, 40, 50 episodes. It really has. I've played clips from people that I've disagreed with a lot, but again, I love the take. And I think I've said that. I'm like, okay, you know what? I love that take. Let's judge that take. And then the next day, maybe that person delivers a take that I'm not a fan of. And you know what? I think that's who I want to be. That's who I want to be, because that is truly authentic. And that's where I want to be. I mean, that is the lane I want to fill. I want to be somebody that just gives it to you straight and gives you the good and the bad with everybody on everything, and then lets you decide. An example with Tucker Carlson, what he's going to talk about, and I'm going to play a few clips from him. We're going to talk about the Iowa caucus and the Republican stuff with Trump and what that means. And, we're going to talk a little bit more about Nikki Haley and DeSantis and these guys. But Tucker also is really big on UFOs. Like, he thinks that there is a major thing that the government is hiding with UFOs. I could not be on any further opposite side of that. I think it's all nonsense. I think that it is, again, I love the expression, the boogeyman. It's just another boogeyman that's been created in order to, one, cause a distraction, two, funnel money into places that they do who the heck knows what with, whether that's the military industrial complex. Next thing you know, we're going to need more money for the military to defend us against aliens. And if they make you think there are aliens out there, or even better way to put that, if they make you think there is the possibility of there being aliens, well, we need $100 billion more money to fund to that military industrial complex to defend us against aliens. So personally, on the alien UFO stuff, I think that is all something that has ulterior motives that become financially available when, again, they can convince the American public, or the world for that matter, that there is a boogeyman and there is that potential threat. Therefore, we need to guard against it. So, there's a perfect example of something he strongly believes, he being Tucker in this case, and I'm totally against that. But that's not going to make me stop listening to him. I've really opened my eyes to everybody, and I've opened my eyes to, I've said it before, but listening to everybody on everything and what is their take. And that's who I am. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. That's who I've morphed into. I can't say I have an allegiance anymore to one side or the other. I actually, in full transparency, I changed my voting status to independent. And yeah, I'm just going to think for myself on all this stuff. And, with an independent voting status, technically you can't vote in each party's, primaries. So I'm not going to be able to pick my Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate, but that's fine because I don't really care. I really don't care. I think that whomever is brought forward is going to be brought forward on purpose, and I'll play for you some stuff to make you see who I think that person's going to be. All right, let me play the rest of this Iowa caucus thing that Tucker said, because this pretty much sums it up. And I do think it's important to understand what the Iowa caucus is and really what came out of it.
Well, as it happens, the state of Iowa did that very thing last night. They had their caucuses. That's the first contest in the 2024 presidential cycle. It all felt very retro, very non-third world. But the results were interesting. Here they are. Donald Trump won 51% of the vote. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida got 21%. Nikki Haley got 19%.
All right, so quick thoughts on this. So Trump won. There's so many articles that are coming out with so many different things. And, because it was Trump winning, they make it out like it's so important. And, oh my God, this is a sign of what's to come. And the Armageddon is coming and all that. So then I thought okay, did he win in 2016? And no, he didn't win the Iowa caucus in 2016. Ted Cruz did. And then I was like, oh, what about 2008? Mike Huckabee won, and the eventual nominee was John McCain. The only year that the person won and then ended up becoming the nominee was 2000 with George W. Bush. So, again, the Iowa caucus, they make these things out to be so much more than they're not. And the fact that Ted Cruz won that in 2016 and just kind of disappeared after that in terms of that election, that shows me, okay, yes, there's something to it, but it's not the end all be all. So DeSantis took second, Nikki Haley took third. To be honest with you, I'm not that surprised on it, even though I do think Nikki Haley, maybe in even the next one, which is going to be in New Hampshire, I think she's going to, it's like a slow uphill ascent, okay? They can't let her ascend too fast, but she's going to ascend. She's going to, basically move ahead of DeSantis. DeSantis will drop out. It'll be her and Trump. And then I think they're going to get Trump out of the mix. And I think it's going to be Nikki Haley. I've thought that this entire time. And I will say, so does Tucker. Interesting.
Thankfully, they have a plan, and the plan is Nikki Haley. Now, Haley frankly underperformed last night. They told us she was surging in Iowa. She was not surging. Nobody really likes her. She came in third by a thin margin, and that denies the media the chance to declare her the one true alternative to Donald Trump. But don't expect them to give up on Nikki Haley. A Nikki Haley presidency is a lot like a war with Iran. It's a terrible idea. No normal person wants it. But because a small, well-funded group of extremely enthusiastic activists are determined to have it anyway, we are perpetually on the verge of getting it.
So the next stop is New Hampshire. Okay, here's my prediction on that. I bet you Nikki Haley, she might win New Hampshire. If she doesn't, she'll take second. She'll move ahead of DeSantis, and this will be the beginning of the end for DeSantis. All right, that's a quick one today, but I will tell you, I'm looking at some things on the board for this week. Ukraine is back in the mix. All of the sudden, England gave a $2.5 billion, I guess, additional aid package to Ukraine. So that was kind of out of nowhere. I've got some friends in the UK and they're like, nobody's happy about that money going there. You've got the Houthi stuff. I'm actually going to do a little description on those guys. I don't think anyone knows where the country of Yemen is. I probably couldn't immediately pick it off a map myself. I know it's in the Middle East area, but again, I'm not going to lie. I couldn't hit it with a dart right now, although I am pretty good at darts. But we're going to talk about that and get into a bunch of other stuff. But I wanted to end with this. This is my plea to you. This is really my plea to you. And that is, you got to be open to stuff. Break out of your comfort zone. Whatever side you fall on, whatever political affiliation you have, honestly, whatever dogma that you have in your thought process. And man, that made me think back to that movie. I think the movie was called Dogma. Yeah, it was the Kevin Smith movie with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And who else was in that thing? I think Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were the big characters. But yeah, Kevin Smith, holy mackerel. I haven't thought about that dude in a long time. Kind of chubby guy with the goatee. He used to wear his hat backwards. He had that buddy. They had some hilarious skits. But anyway, Dogma, if you don't know what that is, that basically is exactly what I'm personally trying to stop doing and get away from. And I wish the same for you. But dogma is a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as undeniably true. So again, you know what? If anything, nothing is undeniably true, especially when it's given to us from a quote-unquote authority. So that's where I want to get to. I want to question things because you know what? We're the authority. We can be our own authority. We don't need an authority telling us something that is undeniably true. So anyway, I'm going to end with it and someone I wish was still alive. And man, if it ever truly meant anything, it's today's episode. But call a spade a spade.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.